But to start off, I'm going to have our faculty both introduce themselves. Why don't you let folks know what department you represent, how long you've been at Reed, talk about your emphasis within the department, and then if you would share your favorite event on campus. What's one of your favorite annual events that pops up that our students can look forward to? And I'm going to have, Gary, you've done this before. I'm going to have you start.
Okay, my name is Kara Cerveny. I'm a professor in the biology department. I study eye and brain development using zebrafish, genetics, cell biology, developmental biology kinds of things. And I heard the favorite event that happens is this is a hard one for me because I feel like there's so many awesome things that happen on a regular basis, and I think one thing I'd like to highlight that happens on a actually weekly basis in the biology department is that every Friday we have a seminar where people's research is highlighted, and so some of those seminars are students presenting their work, typically seniors as they're finishing up their thesis. Most of the seminar slots are typically folks that we invite from outside of campus to come and share their research with us, with the whole department. And then some of those are individual faculty from the department themselves. Typically, those of us who have recently come back from sabbatical will present. And also, we have some informational sessions during those times where we might share information about summer research opportunities, how to apply, where to look for all that information, things like that. So it's kind of like it's every Friday at noon, we have really good snacks, awesome science highlighted, and that's one of the things. There's so many things, but I'm just going to highlight the thing that biology does really well.
Hmm, very nice. How about you, Lindsay?
Hi, I'm Lindsey Novak. I'm a professor in the economics department, and I'm an international development economist. I mostly study low-income countries, particularly African countries. And I do a lot of work around women's health in particular, and then also around marriage, and a lot around like wealth transfers at marriage, which tend to be significantly large, in a lot of cases. And so it has big implications for, women's health and child's health, children's health, like kind of down the line. And then favorite event on campus, there are so many to choose from. I will cheat and have two. So the econ department has had, so just last night we had karaoke night, which was really fun. We had a game night maybe a month ago. So lots of fun ways to kind of get engaged with the students and the faculty. And then I think kind of the more infrequent event is senior dinner. So with the graduating seniors, it's just a really fun time to celebrate all of the accomplishments they had and just, yeah, a night of a lot
Mhm.
of joy.
That's a really good one. That's a really good one. How about you, Kevin?
Hey everyone, I'm Kevin Holmes. I'm a professor in the psychology department. I've been at Reed for 6 years now, and my focus in psychology is cognitive psychology. I study the relation between language and thought, how languages reflect and shape the way we think. And a lot of my work looks at how different ways of framing a message can affect the way that people reason about an issue, and kind of make judgments and decisions about important issues. And events, I'm also going to cheat. I'm going to mention two events. One is something we do every spring in the psychology department. We have our senior thesis poster session where students present their thesis work, and it's a big event. It attracts people from all over campus. I've seen Millie on there. Kind of it's a chance for students to kind of showcase their work and all the hard work they've done throughout the year, and to kind of inform others about their findings, and so kind of educate the community as well. And then the other one I would mention is Paideia. This is our college-wide kind of celebration of learning that happens about 10 days before spring semester starts. And this is where any Reed community member can teach a class, can kind of impart knowledge to others. participated in a mochi making class taught by one of my students. This year, I actually played Read Survivor. I was one of the Survivor contestants in this game, and so it was kind of fun to try to form alliances and play this kind of strategy game with the students. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. How far did you get?
I was voted out right before the merge. I'm still a little bitter about it. As they say, I was swap screwed. My tribe was intact, but then we got swapped, and I ended up in the minority on the new tribe, and it was a whole thing.
Oh, that's how that happens. I love it. I love it. Survivor is still a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that families may note, and I've talked to this some of you before, is that we're calling each other by our first names, but the Reed students call you all by your first names too, right? And President Bilger goes by Audrey. I go by Million. What is that about? This whole first name thing. What does that do for our community?
I can take that just because it reminds me of, I'll share a little story and then I'll talk about what it does for our community. Because every year in the spring, right around spring break, there's a relatively local conference about developmental biology, and I often take students. And there are other students who go with their faculty mentors from all around the Pacific Northwest. And a couple years ago, there was one student from another small liberal arts college who was there by themselves. And my lab kind of adopted them a little bit, and they were hanging out with us. And one of the people in my lab said to this other student, well, we go to one of these first name schools. And so you have to call Kara Kara, because this person kept calling me Professor Cerveny, and it was the strangest experience. I think what it does for our community is that it lets students know that we're there on the same kind of intellectual journey together. And it breaks down some of that hierarchy that's in the classroom sometimes. And it allows them to see us as people, and we see them as, like there's no sort of, you must call me this thing. I just feel like it helps us see each other where we are in our academic and intellectual journey. I think in the lab especially, and in the classroom too, when you're having a conversation with someone, having a conversation as Kara or Lindsey or Kevin or Millian, as opposed to Dr. Cerveny or Professor Holmes or Professor Novak, it makes the conversation easier and allows you to focus on the concepts and the content as opposed to the sort of social norms. And so I know that that's a big shift for some students who are really used to that sort of hierarchical structure. But once they get over that, they really, I think, appreciate it.
Yeah, it kind of shortens the space between you and a student, right? And I sort of feel like a lot of the conversations sound almost like peer conversations, which is really interesting. And it allows them to see themselves as an academic. So I think that's kind of a really neat feature. How do y'all pronounce Paideia? Like Paideia?
Paideia, yeah.
Okay.
Paideia, yeah.
Yeah.
Nadia, that was an excellent question. Not unrelated at all. I love it. Okay, great. So one of the things that is also sort of cool about the Reed community, and I talk about this a lot, like we don't participate in the rankings. That's not where our values are. And so, but this continues to be an exceptional school. In particular, we produce more PhDs per capita than any other school in the United States except for 3. So more PhDs per 100 students in Harvard, Stanford, Yale, all of these places. And when people hear that, they sort of wonder what the secret sauce is. So I know that, all of our students don't do graduate school, but can you talk about why you think that is? What happens in terms of our educational experience, or why are students curious and want to continue their education in this way? How have you sort of made sense of that?
Yeah, I can.
Oh, no, go ahead, Kevin.
Go ahead, Lindsey, please. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we can tag team. I was just going to say that I think that the way that the classroom is set up and that there's a lot less emphasis on grades and there's a lot more emphasis on like free thinking and actually like engaging with the material in a really different way, I think changes the classroom from being this kind of, I guess, very hierarchical relationship where, somebody is in the class just to make sure they get an A so that they can go on and get whatever job they want or something like that, to actually really engaging with the material and thinking very creatively. And I think that for getting a PhD, it's very different from typical classwork where there's a problem, you answer it, there's a problem, you answer it. Whereas with research and kind of the PhD process, it's a very wandering process, and you need to be comfortable with not knowing the answer, and maybe there's not an answer, or you might not come to it in a lifetime. Like you have to be really comfortable with going on a journey, and I think we engender that a lot in our students because of the kind of culture in our classrooms.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was going to pick up on Kara's use of the word journey because I think that captures what we're doing. We're focused on the questions. We're focused on the scholarship. Not just as faculty, we're not just delivering information. We are partners with our students in seeking out the answers. And I'll say that in the psychology department, research is really infused throughout our curriculum. So from starting in the intro psych course, students are learning how research is designed, how it's conducted, and through that process, they kind of become participants in science. And so they're kind of doing that all throughout the curriculum, and that sets them up really well for pursuing a PhD later on.
Right. If I think we have another question. We have someone who's curious about wondering how the pre-med track is different for someone who's majoring in biology versus someone who's going pre-med. And the question goes on to talk about, sort of med school support. Maybe you all could also talk about how you don't have to major in biology to go pre-med necessarily. But can you talk a little bit about the pre-med track?
So one thing I want to say is that we don't have like a pre-med major, but what we do have is the possibility of majoring in lots of different things while meeting the requirements for applying to medical school or applying to any sort of health profession. I used to just always talk about pre-med or medical school, and having had students who came into my lab or to courses that I was sort of mentoring them, and they realized that there were so many other options. There's, doctors in physical therapy, there's all kinds of nursing related fields, there's veterinary medicine, and so we've shifted away from calling it pre-med to calling it pre-health in a lot of cases, and then talking to students through that. All of that information is available about which courses you need in order to apply successfully to medical school. There are faculty who advise the pre-med. There's a pre-med advising track, and so students who are interested and sort of want to go down that route can meet with those different faculty members. There's also a pre-health club that's student driven, but also works really closely with the Center for Life Beyond Read. So those are some of the resources that are there. I think one of the things that I'd like to highlight is that academic advising at Reed, especially for these kinds of pre-professional things, is very faculty sort of mentoring along with what the Center for Life Beyond Read offers. And you are personal academic advisor, so you have an academic advisor typically in your discipline will be there to help you. If you end up majoring in something like history, then it's really important that I picked on history just because there was a student I recently worked with who majored in history and is now applying to medical school. But people can major in lots of different things. If you do major in something outside of the sciences really broadly, like if you're outside of psychology, neuroscience, biology, chemistry, biochemistry, molecular biology, then you're going to want to make sure that you access one of those pre-med advisors. But in the other fields, I think your academic advisor can help with that. Yeah.
Mhm.
hopefully
And
that helped. Yeah.
and also to know, like, essentially no school has a pre-med major. It's always a selection of classes to help you go pre-med.
Yeah.
And so that's a really helpful point of distinction. Kevin, for someone who's thinking about becoming a therapist or a counseling psychologist, what is the path through Reed Psychology Program?
Yeah, I'm going to try and channel my colleague Chris Anderson, a clinical psychologist. She would say, I think that a good therapist is someone who has their practice grounded in research. And so students at Reed who major in psychology are going to be well prepared to go on to further study to become a therapist if that's what they want to pursue. And there's no track within psychology, within the major per se, to kind of lead you down the path to becoming a therapist. You can just be a psych major, and you can choose which kind of core courses you might take, which might include psychopathology, which might and the upper level courses like in clinical psychology, which Chris teaches. So you could take courses that maybe kind of on the surface are related to work as a therapist, but the reality is that all of psychology, all of what our discipline studies, is going to be relevant to work as a therapist. And so I think just having a solid grounding in the science of human behavior and mental processes is going to set you up well for that future path. You're muted, Milian.
Because I'm an active listener. If you all had to think about a student, one of the things that students have a hard time imagining is the relationship that they develop with the faculty member. They might see you on Zoom and then hear you talking about a relationship with a student where you're going by first name. How does that happen? What are the ways that students connect with faculty outside of the classroom? And that might be, well, I know there's different ways, but what does that look like, and how do they run into that during their Reed experience?
I think it often starts when students take one of our classes and they stop by office hours and we get to know them a little bit better.
And
We
Kevin,
have
what are office hours?
Yeah, office hours are weekly hours that we designate where we are going to have our door open. Students are welcome to drop by to talk about the material from class or just to talk more generally about their interests, their academic plans, or even their personal interests. And yeah, and that it lets us really get to know them and also to offer additional support to students who may need it. But I think as we get to know students in that setting, it can also it kind of paves the way for us to kind of interact comfortably, in a variety of settings, but in and out of the classroom, and then later on, it can sort of lead to maybe research opportunities. Students who stop by my office hours might want to know about what I'm working on in my research in my lab, and I might say, oh, maybe it sounds like your interests kind of align with mine. Maybe you want to stop by you want to come to the lab meeting that I'm having on Friday. And so these kinds of interactions kind of happen kind of organically.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And do we ever advertise things to students that they might take advantage of, or departments doing that in terms of other opportunities?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, I think that I, I'll talk a little bit about summer research because that's kind of where my brain is right now, given the time
Mm-hmm.
of the year where we're constantly advertising summer research opportunities, both on campus and outside of campus, and ways that students can apply for funding to do research and other sort of projects with a faculty mentor over the summer. That's really advertised or shared very widely with students, especially once students are in a major or students have decided their path. But even at the introductory level, I mean, I can speak for at least for biology, but I think in other introductory courses, we're also sharing that information with students. Like I shared in my Bio 102 course that there are these opportunities to apply for summer research with students in my introductory course yesterday. Um, we also will, I think there are ways that students can work with faculty that might not just be academic and intellectual. And I'm thinking of another event that we have on campus, which is called the Great Reedy Bake Off. And so there are these teams that form, and sometimes they're formed in different disciplines or just like a group of friends or a lab, or some people get together and enjoy baking these different challenging things and share them. And so that's a kind of way where students and faculty are interacting. You might get to meet a faculty member and see a completely different side of them than you would in the classroom or the lab or the conference setting.
Do any of you have a Ren Fair baseball team?
Yes.
Okay.
Softball.
Softball team.
Yes.
Softball
We didn't
team.
make it very far last year, but that's okay.
What was the name of your team?
Ooh, I don't remember. Something
Okay.
economics related.
I love it. I love
Oh, we
it.
had a really good T-shirt this year, actually. It had, so you know how DNA and RNA have these things called bases in them? So instead of the bases, we had like the nitrogenous bases on the shirt, and
We
Good
were
stuff.
we were the moral hazards. I just remembered. Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember our name.
That's the best part. Let's see. So I would love for you each to sort of tell me, and we're in the elevator, we're going from first floor to 10th floor, and I look at you and I say, how is your department economics different than the economics department at other schools? And so, Lindsey, what would you say that as we're climbing from floor 1 to floor 10?
Well, it's interesting.
Yeah.
I would say the curriculum in the econ department at Reed is a little more flat than some of the other departments that I've been part of. And I think that has a lot of really big benefits that once you take our intro course, basically almost all of our elective courses are available to you. So you really have labor economics, behavioral economics, which is psychology and economics, development economics. Like you really have the world sort of like opened to you. Whereas at previous institutions I've taught at, you have to take like intro and then a bunch of other core courses before you can get to the things that you get to select. So I think that's really nice. One, I would say maybe like downside of that is that there can be fewer opportunities to use some of those skills. And so because we've noticed that some of the skills that you build in the core courses, because we've noticed that we've really started to add a couple of new courses that are really designed to allow you to use some of the statistics skills that you build in econometrics, and they'll use some of the microtheory skills that you build in that course. So trying to balance that out a little bit, but at least the vast majority of electives are really open, which I think is kind of unique. And I do think it also pushes students a little bit harder than what you might see at other institutions, because you are reading these like very difficult academic papers after taking intro econ. So it's a lot of fun, but it does require some engagement from students for sure.
Nice. Ding,
Yeah.
floor 10. Good job.
Can I just add?
We're going down.
Oh, I was just going to mention, related to what Lindsey was saying, our curriculum in psychology is also pretty flat, and we were actually just reflecting on this as a department. And one of the things that we think is a real benefit to that structure is that in a single class, you can have students ranging, say, from sophomore to senior year, and they're learning from each other. So they're almost playing different roles in the class because they have different levels of experience. And so it's not just the instructor serving as the expert, but other students in the class who have maybe encountered the material in a different form or thought about related ideas in other classes. They're there to help maybe the sophomores who are kind of encountering this kind of thing for the first time. And I think that there's real value to that kind of, I would call it like a mentored mentoring model.
Yeah, I was just going to say almost exactly the same thing. I think it's true for almost all of the departments that I know of at Reed, honestly, that the structure is very flat like this. And I think it kind of gets to back to the point you were talking about of this sort of idea of we're on a first name basis and we are on this journey together, and having students of all sort of experience levels in a single course can be really beneficial. I think where I love seeing it in my developmental biology course, there's an independent project towards the end where students work in pairs, and because of the way the lab is structured, there are students there who've taken multiple upper level biology courses and some who this is their first one. And it's really awesome when people who are more experienced pair up with the students who this is their first time, and kind of watch that partnership and the sort of mentor-mentee relationship blossom.
Mm. And I saw a question: average class size, max 24, average is about 15 for students. Some classes are as small as, I heard a faculty member say 6 students in one of their upper level classes. Faculty to student ratio is 9-1. So just some quick stats on that. Kevin, how could a sociology student use a psychology class to improve their studies? And we do offer sociology, we do offer anthropology, we do offer psychology. And so at some schools, these departments are sort of merged into one. One of those two may be merged together. So I just wanted to note that they are distinctly different programs for Reed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we call psychology a hub discipline because we're really at the intersection of so many other fields. And so sociology is one of those. I mean, obviously, we're connected to the natural sciences, biology, chemistry, physics. But we're also very connected to the social sciences. And so, as part of the psych major, we have an allied field requirement, which requires students to kind of take a sort of a collection of courses in a field allied with psychology. So it could be something like history and social sciences, where sociology would be a big part of that. Then again, if you're a sociology major and you want to take psychology classes to kind of supplement your program of study, that's also a great option. And we have a number of students who do that. We offer in psych, we offer a number of seminars that are open to students that have no prerequisites, not even Psych 101. And so, but like Lindsey was saying, even in those classes, you're reading, difficult academic papers. And so we don't teach classes for non-majors. They are psychology classes. Students are reading the literature of our discipline, and students from all disciplines can learn to do that.
Mm-hmm. And can someone talk a little bit about maybe, so the question is about environmental biology, but what might be also helpful is if someone can speak to also environmental studies. I don't know if folks feel comfortable talking about environmental humanities. But I think for our programs, it's more than just environmental biology. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I mean, I can take that one. I have colleagues in the department. Like Kevin, I'll try to channel them. One of my really good colleagues talks about biologists as the ones who wear lab coats and the ones who wear flannel. And I'm definitely in the lab coat category, and the person I'm thinking about is in the flannel wearing category. So I'll try to channel Aaron Ramirez and talk about a little bit of our environmental studies program, which sits kind of at the intersection of many different disciplines that touch on the environment. It's a pretty structured major in the sense that you take some introductory sciences, you take some introductory social sciences, you take some introductory history courses, political science courses. You can choose a track within the environmental studies major. I'm most familiar with environmental studies, which is associated with biology, environmental studies associated with chemistry. We also do have one for political science and history
And economics.
and unofficially economics. Yeah. And so there, what do I want to say about it? I think this is these are courses of study where students have chosen kind of like the unifying theme for the courses that they're really interested in, and then they're choosing one way to approach that theme, whether it's through a biological lens or a chemical lens or an economics lens, history, political science lens, thinking about all the different ways that those you can view the environment. There are also some courses for that major that are interdisciplinary majors. There are co-taught by faculty who are in different departments. So for instance, we have a biologist and a historian teaching in this environmental studies. It's called Environmental Studies 300. I honestly don't know if there's anything other than that's the name of it, where students go and they do this really interesting sort of community engaged work, developing all kinds of connections with the sort of literature, all about the environment, both from a biological standpoint and a sort of a more social perspective, and thinking about how you can impact policy and change using the data that you collect from a biological perspective too. So I guess that's a really long, winding answer to say there are lots of different ways that you can investigate the environment, and there are many faculty here who are interested in helping you along that path. And there's a defined major for kind of setting the groundwork for going into environmental policy or environmental research.
Can you all, and Lindsey, I'm going to start with you. If you had to, people get to college and we've all seen students traverse this experience. We've all done it ourselves. If you had to give them advice, or when you give them advice on how to best take advantage of this experience for 4 years, what advice would you give our prospective students? Like what you got to do this when you're there. It could be in the classroom, outside of the classroom activities. It could be a perspective. But what advice do you have for them to take advantage of the next 4 years?
Ooh, that's a big question. I often wish that I could go back to my undergraduate. Just like I always think like education is wasted on the young. Like as you get older, you just realize like so much more stuff that you want to learn. So I think that if I was going to give advice to my younger self or to other young folks, that really focusing on like there are some classes that you're not going to be that interested in and you have to take them, and like that's fine, but not rushing through the classes that really interest you. Actually setting time aside to not just get the problem set done, but actually to really like think about it, go and talk to your professor, to ask questions, to dive deeper. Like particularly at a school like Reed, we're available, and like a big part of our job is making sure that you're learning what you want to learn. So I think, yeah, just actually, yeah, not rushing it, finding study partners, like make it really fun. I think that was like the very best part of any class that I took in undergrad was finding people that I really enjoyed studying with. And I think being at a small institution, it's a little easier to find people that you're taking the same classes with. So it's kind of, I think, can be a little bit easier to find study buddies, which I think is really helpful. And then I think also on the social side, just like there's tons of cool clubs, like get involved in those things. It's going to make life a lot more fun for sure.
Nice. Kevin, what do you think? Do you have any advice?
Now that Lindsay mentions it, I want to go back to my undergrad as well.
I'm always, every time I advise students, I'm so jealous of all the classes they get to take.
I would say invest in the community, and that can there's so many different levels of community, in clubs, as Lindsay said, or like in departments. We try to cultivate a welcoming community, and we have events, talks, and social events, and I think that. Those study buddies that you find, if you are connecting with them in the classroom and out of the classroom, it makes for a really rich experience because you're kind of going through that journey together, and you're kind of I think it's actually really fun to sort of look at your chart how your thinking evolves over time, as you are new to a particular discipline, and as you're kind of going through these classes together with friends, you can really see how your thinking, your understanding develops, and it's really, I think, satisfying to kind of to see that happen over time.
You're muted again, Emilion, but I was just
Oh,
gonna say, okay,
yeah.
yeah, I was just gonna say that Lindsay and Kevin have said like a lot of great advice that I wholeheartedly would second and third. I think that if I could go back in time and tell like former Kara what I wish I had known then, I think it would be kind of around like identifying people who you study well with, that you get along with well early on. And what I tell my students is that sometimes you can find those friends in PE classes and like to take advantage of the PE that you have here is a really great thing to do. But the advice that I would give myself, honestly, would be that it's okay when things are hard and that there are people who have also experienced that this is sometimes we choose the thing that is really interesting, but it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. And so I think for me, when I went to undergrad, I thought, oh, I'm choosing this thing that I really like, therefore it's going to be easy to do. And not everything about it is always easy. Science, you're going on this unknown journey. Maybe some of the things are already known that you have to learn, but they're new to you. And the way that trying to figure out how you learn best is a real key thing, I think, for success as an intellectual academic, but also just making the most of your time at Reed. And we have a lot of things like these drop-in office hours or individual tutoring, those kinds of things that I wish that I had or that I had known how to take advantage of earlier in my career.
So I have three more questions. The first one is really quick. Difference between sociology and anthropology.
I might be the best one to answer that. I think of anthropology, well, sociology is about how individuals sort of like interact with each other, I would say, and I'm happy for anybody to correct me. And then anthropology, I think, is a lot more the study of like culture, like how culture develops and how culture shapes behavior. Which those things are clearly very related to each other. But yeah, I think that's kind of it's like the existing environment is the cultural environment is sort of anthropology, and then sociology is about how like people interact with each other.
Mhm.
Very simple.
And Kevin, how are both of those different than social psychology?
Yeah, probably in primarily in the methods. I think psychologists, many psychologists and sociologists and anthropologists ask similar questions. They're interested in similar topics, but social psychologists are going to use the tools of our trade. So they're going to be maybe designing experiments or doing kind of more quantitative work. Sociology also is very can be very quantitative. Um, I actually should mention that in my methods in cognitive psychology class today, we were discussing a reading that was inspired by work in anthropology, and so the study of culture there became really important for understanding how people think about categories of the natural world. And so we've been talking about, at what level do we categorize things? Do we think of trees as trees or oak trees, and what determines sort of the kind of preferred level of categorization. This is something that psychologists will study, but anthropologists as well, and it's tied to our interactions with nature, and some of that has devolved as we have become more, as some cultures have become more kind of urbanized.
Mm. Next question. If you had one place that you would want people to go when they come visit here in Portland, where would it be?
I usually tell students when they have breaks that they should go to hopscotch. I don't know, have any of you been to hopscotch? So
What's
fun.
hopscotch?
So hopscotch is this art installation that's all kind of light
That's right. Yeah.
based. Yeah. And so you can like interact with these different kind of art pieces. Some of them are there's a huge ball pit, I don't know. And then there's another like big bouncy thing. It's really fun. I've taken my 3-year-old there. I've taken my 75-year-old mother-in-law there. Like every my teenage nephews, like everybody has had a really good time. So hopscotch.
That is so cool. I've seen it. I haven't gone yet. That's a
Yeah,
good
it's
suggestion.
really fun.
I was just going to say, I can't think of just one place. This is really hard to choose just one place. I love, even though I'm the kind of biologist that wears the lab coat, I really do love being outside and enjoying sort of the beauty of the Pacific Northwest. And so I encourage students to get out a little bit. And so there are many ways in which you can do that, even just in our backyard. So even on campus, you can walk through the canyon, which is really beautiful. You can see salamanders and beavers and otters and all kinds of cool creatures. Lots of interesting things in the pond water that you can look at under the microscope. But I wanted to highlight the Japanese garden, which is one of my favorite places in Portland to go. They have lots of interesting festivals. There's just beautiful, beautiful gardens. And I think it's one of the sort of Japanese gardens outside of Japan that is so similar to a Japanese garden that you would see in Japan, that it's something to not miss.
That's a great place.
I'm a big theater fan, and so I like to see plays and musicals when I can. And there's lots of student discounts, so I think it can be accessible for all. I like there's Portland Center Stage. There's various companies that are putting on really interesting productions. I just saw Tiger Style about the adult children of parents who maybe had a tiger style of parenting and sort of coming to terms with that. Yeah, there's so many different cultural events, and also on campus, the productions are great that the students put on.
Hmm. Carnell and I do a series. Carnell, our dean of faculty, our dean of students, we do a video series called Roaming Reedies. So one place we haven't visited is Oaks Amusement Park, which is an amusement park, which is what, 10 minutes from campus, if that. And it's lovely. You know, there are rides there. It's for everyone of all ages. There's a you can go skating there if you'd like to. And that's when I discovered my 6-year-old does not like roller skating, but it's a really good time.
I
So
was gonna say the roller skating place is really awesome. They have an actual organ, one of these really old organs that they bring down on Sundays and play, and you can skate around to this old organ. Yeah.
it's fun. It's a lot of fun. The final thing I'd love for you to share about folks is they come to read and people are thinking about majors. They're also thinking about interdisciplinary programs. But the one thing that's hard for them to imagine is the senior year version of themselves after having gone through this educational experience. So, one, two, three of you could answer this. Can you talk about the difference you see between a student that comes in their first year and the student that you see their senior year based on whatever combination of experiences they have? How might you remark on who they were as a first year student and who you now see as a graduating senior?
Go for it, Kara.
I was just gonna say that I think it's just a privilege to work with students who come in and are willing to trust us to go like to and work together, and to come with such energy and enthusiasm. So I just want to start with that and then say that it's so fun and so gratifying to watch students who maybe didn't quite know how to answer a question or weren't as confident about their ability and or interests finish a senior thesis and defend it and talk about it with such authority and such just like ownership and love it really of the thing that they did and what they wish they could have had time to do. I mean, in my lab, we're always talking about, okay, what are our future directions? And I feel like when a student has bought in that much and has just matured into a person who can ask a question, I really start to look at students in that, sort of senior year. Thesis students really grow so much. And that journey begins that first year, of course, going from someone who can really think critically and logically and carefully about the work that they are doing themselves, as well as think about the work that other folks are doing. And to see that develop is really joyful for me.
Yeah, I have a similar answer. I think our students come in really curious, and they don't always know how to go about answering their questions. I think in psychology, especially, we give them tools for critiquing research, and they get really good at it, and they become more confident. But then I think there's another step that as they kind of move further in their development, they learn to recognize not just the limitations of a particular idea or approach, but also the value of it, the contribution. And so they can kind of think about the strengths and the limitations kind of side by side, and kind of and put those kind of in perspective. And then I think the final piece that I see in students when they're defending their senior thesis is they've acquired all of this knowledge in a specialized domain, and then they have to kind of think back to what it was like not to know that information and be able to communicate it to other people, and kind of do a kind of perspective taking. And that takes real ability, real careful thought to be able to go back to what to overcome the what we call the curse of knowledge, right? Knowledge, it's a blessing and it's a curse, because once you have it, it's hard to imagine what it was like not to have it, and to be able to kind of bring other people along on your kind of train of thought. I think our students are able to do that by the time they graduate, and it's really wonderful to see.
Lindsay, did you want to add anything, or you want to just double
Yeah.
down?
I will, second and third, all of that. I think that's really great. And particularly the first thing that came to mind was confidence, like seeing their confidence build, academically, but also seeing a lot of ownership, I think, of like the campus, and feeling much more connected. And yeah, feeling like Reed is kind of a place that they have a space in, and can actually, change the environment in ways that they want to. Or yeah, I've appreciated seeing the ownership. And this isn't the question that you asked, but kind of how Kara was saying that, Reed students are so wonderful. Like, I've taught at a few other institutions, and I love Reed students. They're just really kind, like, and that, isn't on the academic side. They're just like really kind humans, and I really appreciate getting to teach them. And then on the academic side, so curious and so eager and genuinely interested in the material, and it makes it just really fun.
Oh, I love hearing you all talk about that. It makes my day. Lindsay, Kevin, Kara, I really appreciate you three joining me tonight to talk to families. And I'm also thankful for the families for using this time to spend with us. And it's an honor that you wanted to know more about Reeds. And so I'm glad we could put this into place for you, so you could figure out where Reed might fit in your own educational experience. As you know, over the next 3 months, we offer a wide variety of programming. We're going to be in many of your neighborhoods. Kara and Kevin are actually traveling with a lot of our admission counselors, so they're going to join us at different receptions. I think that's right. And so hopefully you'll get to meet some of our faculty on the road. Audrey is going to be on the road again. I'm going to be out and about. And so we've just sent out invitations for admitted students to come and join us, and even some juniors to come and join us. We have Read Admit Days on campus. Gives you a chance to sit in on classes, talk to the Center for Life Beyond Read, listen to parents talk about their students' experience. These are really rich events with a lot to do. Folks walk away feeling really satisfied. And then because students travel further to go to Reed than any other college in the nation, we have really robust virtual programming. It's not average, it's exceptional. And so join us for these other events that come up. Carnell and I are going to talk about tough questions. Audrey and I are going to talk about her vision for the college. That's president of Reed and the dean of students, vice president of students. So please spend time with us because we want you to make an informed decision about where you want to be for 4 years. And we hope it's Reed, but we hope that more than anything that you're happy. So we'll be in touch soon. Thank you all, and everyone have a really good night.
Thanks so much.